What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. And today I'm very excited to check out Brewin USA from Adam's Apple Games. This is for 2 to 5 players, ages 21 plus. It'll take you about 1 hour to play. And in Brewin USA, you are going to be brewing beers and then bidding on different auctions and trying to have control of different regions. So it's a bidding slash auction slash area control game. It's got a unique theme, some really cool components, but does it all work together? I don't know. Let's open it up and I'll tell you what I think. Alright then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Brewin USA. So first and foremost, we have our handy dandy rule booklet. It is 17 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, and it's okay. It definitely feels like it could be better. It's not as clear as I would like it to be, and I can't really put my finger on what's wrong with the rule booklet. It just doesn't pass the eyeball test, and I've had other people tell me that as well who have the game. But overall, it should get you up and running pretty smoothly for the most part. So in Brewin USA, what you're going to be doing is you are going to be trying to brew your own beer, and then you're going to try and take over the country with your beer by taking over various different cities and then trying to control different regions in order to gain victory points. So the game is going to be broken down into 4 main phases, which we'll go over. But first, let's go over the components. We'll talk about how you can score and win the game, and then we'll go over the 4 different phases. So component-wise, you are going to set out the America pretty much, and you'll be having these tiles. They are double-sided, which is nice. They'll have different cities. Some will have various different amounts of points on them that you can score at the end of the game. Some will also have special symbols on them that will do various different things, and all those are pretty well explained for the most part in the rules and also on your player aid card, even though I wish some of the special ones were explained just a little bit better, especially the one where you pull stuff in, but still it's nice to have that variability of tiles. You're going to have different colors, and each of the different colors is going to represent a different region. So right now I have a 4-player game set up. When you play a 5-player game, you will have 12 tiles. And next what you're going to do is each player is going to select a color, and they're going to get their own color of bottle caps. So these are the bottle caps. Also, you're going to have a whole boatload of the gold bottle caps, which you will count as currency during the game, and victory points at the end of the game, and also as kind of prestige points on the board. I'll show you how that works a little bit later. Next, you're going to get your handy dandy little scoring pad, which is, nice. It helps you keep track of score at the end of the game. And you're going to have 2 types of cards. The first type of cards you're going to have are these cards right here, which will be beer cards. At the beginning of the game, you're going to get 5 of these beer cards, and you're going to discard 2. You will always have 2 or 3 beer cards in your hand, except for right after you brew a beer. And generally what you want to be paying attention to on these different kinds of beer are how cheap the beer is to make, and also how popular or how many different colors are on the board. So as you can see on one of these particular tiles, so let's take a look at this one. This one right here is Phoenix. And at the end of the game, if you have an orange or a red beer here and you're in control of Phoenix, you'll score 3 victory points. Now you can put other flavors of beer here, but you won't get those 3 victory points at the end. You can still have control of the city. Now some of them will only have the 2 on there. So for instance, green and purple. This means you have to have a green or a purple even to go here. So you want to kind of pay attention to what colors are out on the board, and also you want to pay attention to how cheap the beer is to make. Because look, this one would cost me 10, whereas this one over here would only cost me 8. So I probably might want to go with that one. So we'll just take these 2. The rest 3 of these will get discarded, and then you are ready to start up the game. So the first thing you're going to do in every phase is called the ingredient auction. This is really one of my favorite aspects of the game. So however many players you have, you are going to deal out that many ingredient piles. So we got a 4-player game. Whoever is the dealer for this round is then going to start flipping stuff over. And they will flip things over until either they have 6 cards out or until you get a duplicate of the same type of card. So boom, we have 2 grains there, so that is now 1 ingredient pile. So we put out another ingredient pile. Grain, yeast, citrus, hops. Oh, this is going to be a good one. Double hops. Ooh, that is a really nice pile. So then we have berry, water, yeast. Oh, this one's a nice one too. Citrus, hops. This one's going to get all 6. Oh, man. These are some nice piles right here. And then we have bourbon barrel, water, grain. Oh, wow. And grain. So these would be the 4 the 4 ingredient piles that people will be bidding on. Now, here is how the auction system works, because it is kind of an interesting auction system. Each person is going to get one of these. You cannot win 2 of them during an auction phase, which also means that whoever gets the last pile is going to get that pile for free. So one person is guaranteed to get a pile for free, which in this case might not be too bad. Now, some other things you want to note about these are they're going to be different numbers and they're going to be different kinds of things. So for instance, grain, this one's a 1 grain, whereas this one's a 4 grain, 5 water, bourbon barrel. Now, why you need these? Well, let's go back to those beer cards, because as I mentioned, you're going to need 2 grain, you're going to need 2 hops, you're going to need 2 water, and then you're going to need 2 yeast to make this one. So you're going to need to get specific things in order to make your beer. Now, also, you might see that there's berry, bourbon barrels, citrus. Well, those are extra flavors you can add to your beer, and they will allow you to do special abilities when you brew them. So draw 2 ingredient cards for pumpkin, switch any 2 market demand stacks between cities for the berry, coffee, steal 1 money from each other player possible. So these will really spice up your beer and also spice up the game. So what's going to happen now is the player to the left of the dealer is going to decide with this cool little doodad right here which one they want to bid on. So let's just say, they're low on cash, and they know that this is probably going to be the most popular one, so they might go here, and they might bid 1. So bada boom, they would bid 1, and now the green guy would say, you know what, I'm going to bid 3, and then the blue guy might come in and he might be like, I'm going to bid 4, and then somebody else might say pass, and when you pass, you put their thing over here to symbolize they passed. Black might then pass, and then it would be between green and blue. And you go until everyone has passed or cannot afford to buy it, at which point whoever wins it is going to pay that much coins, that much of the bottle caps, the gold bottle caps. So let's say they paid 4, I think was what we said. So they paid 4. They're going to get this ingredient pile, put it into their hand, and then the person who is the active dealer is now going to take these bottle caps and place them out onto an unoccupied space on the board. So this is going to be market demand. So this city, we'll put it in the Twin Cities. The Twin Cities really wants some beer. So I'll place all 4 of them right there, which makes Twin Cities a much more appealing place to put your beer because now it has 4. So now what's going to happen is Blue won this auction, so they no longer can bid on any of these 3. Black is once again going to pick one that they would like to try and get. So they might look over here and be like 5 bourbon barrel, 5 water, 4 grain. Yeah, I'll go 1 over here as well. So they might go 1 again, and then you would rinse, wash, and repeat. So we might say green won this one, and maybe they spent $3. So they might put, $3 over here on Seattle, the dealer would. And then eventually you will run completely out of these because somebody's going to buy this, and the last person will get something for free. So let's go ahead and put this in our hand, and we'll just pretend that this is all the stuff in our hand. So that would be the end of the auction phase, and you would have various different amounts of money spread around the board because this is called market demand. So next, you're going to brew beer if at all possible. So you'll look at your hand, you'll be like, all right, can I brew some beer? So let's see, I could probably do this one right here, hopefully with what I have. Tell me I got a wild. Because yes, if you didn't see, there are also what are called organics, which are wild. You can use those as anything you want. So when brewing beer, how it works is, if you pay over, too bad. So if you pay, for instance, 4 water, even though this only needs 2 water, you just lose that water. So you want to try and be as efficient as possible when making your beer. So for this one, I have 2 hops. I have 2 grain, even though I'm paying 5. Not really the most efficient way, but whatever. I have 4 yeast, also very inefficient. And I have the organic to replace the grain. So I would be able to make this beer, and I'll also go ahead and make it so this is a berry. Just because, even though it's not really a good idea at this point, I'm going to do that. So I now have made this beer, which means these cards go into the discard pile, and this can get played out onto the board onto a spot that has demand for orange. So since I did berry, switch any 2 market demand stacks between cities, except if city is in Brewfest. So yeah, actually that would not be a good time to play that. So you know what? I will actually abstain on that, and I'll just brew a regular beer. And I take my bottle cap and I put it onto a spot with an orange. So I might go, I might go right here. I might go to Billings. Now, Billings isn't going to get me victory points, but what it allows me to do is, if there's market demand on cities around it, it pulls in that market demand. So, for instance, if somebody plays something on Cincinnati or Phoenix at the end of the during the accounting phase, I would be able to kind of pull it in, which is nice. So next you get to a brew fest. What is a brew fest? A brew fest happens when more than one person puts their beer on a particular city. So let's just say that this happened. Actually, let's go this example right here. Let's say this is the example that these two people are having a brew fest. How a brew fest works is, and it's nicely laid out on this handy dandy little cheat sheet card. You actually get 2 of them, which is a good call. What you're going to do is the 2 people, or potentially more, that are involved in the brew fest are going to choose between 1 and 3 cards from their hand that are like this. And they're going to put them under the table, then they're all going to reveal at the same time how many cards they want to play. What's going to happen is, if you played any cards, then one of your cards is going to get discarded, as long as somebody else played cards. So in this particular example, let's just say I played 2 cards, this guy played 3 cards. We're both going to discard one of the cards. So the other person will pick one of the cards to discard, boom, boom. That card is just now gone out of the game. Then we reveal. So I have 2, he has 6. He wins the Brewfest and gets to remain in the city. Now, these ingredients you do get back, though, which is nice. And you kind of want to hold back nice ingredients just for Brewfest in your hand. But what happens is, since, let's just say black won, that means green now has to leave the city. But since they still were there and they still got money, they get half of the coins right now, and this goes into their pile to spend. Now, I have the choice. I can either leave these coins here, or no, I don't actually have that choice. My bad. Never mind. Continuing onward. So that would be the Brewfest, and Brewfest will happen quite frequently, especially towards the end of the game when regions are up for grabs, because regions can score you an awful lot of points. Once you've done that, you go to the accounting phase. At this point, you can, if you control a city, you can either pull one beer tap off of it as money, or you can put another one on as victory points at the end of the game, and then you pass the first player marker and you rinse, wash, and repeat. One minor rule that I forgot to mention is that you always will have 3 beer cards in your hand at all times. So when you brew a beer, you're going to draw 2 additional beer cards. Oh, not those. 2 additional beer cards, and then you're going to make sure that you have 3, so you'll discard one of the cards that you have. Another thing that I want to mention is that losing a Brewfest is not actually that terrible. And in some instances, you might actually want to lose a Brewfest because then you get half the money. Well, I mean, you don't want to lose it generally, but it's not a terrible idea to do. So if you lose a Brewfest, you put your beer and you put it in front of you, and then it will cost you $1 to reintroduce it in the future, which is not a terrible price at all. Anywho, you're going to continue to go until someone has 3 beers that they have made, at which point you will finish that round, play one more round, and whoever has the most victory points will win the game. In a 2-player game, you will have to brew 4 beers. Now, how do you score points? Let's talk about points. So first, unused money. So any unused money you have, that is going to be worth 1 victory point a pop, as long as it's in front of you and not on the board. Next, you're going to get 5 victory points for each beer that you have launched. You're going to get points for cities you control. So how that works is you look up here, make sure you've meeting that, well, this one I actually haven't met it. Make sure that you meet this guideline up here, and then you get that many victory points. You also get victory points for the market demand on that city. So let's pretend that this was actually a purple beer. I would get 8 points for being on this this tile in the Twin Cities, because I'd get these 3 plus the 5. Then you get control of regions. How regions works is you have to have a majority in that region. If there's a tie, nobody gets it. How many points do you score for a region? Well, you score points for a region based on how much demand is in that region. So for instance, since I'm the only person on the brown ones, I would score 3 points of demand for this region. You tally up the points. Whoever has the most will be the winner of Brewin USA. That in a nutshell is how the game is played. Alrighty then, Brewin USA from Adam's Apple Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, 2 to 5 players, but I would say I liked it best at 3, 4, and 5 players. Actually, I liked it best at 5 players, but that being said, it's not a too bad 2-player game. I just liked it best when there was more stuff happening with the auctions. Continuing onward, the rule booklet is not as good as I would like it to be, and as I mentioned in the middle part, which was a little bit lengthy, I can't put my finger on what exactly is not good about the rule booklet. It's just some things are not as clear as you would want them to be when you're first reading the rules, because it is a pretty simple, straightforward game, but I just wish they would have clarified a couple things here and there. Another con that I have with the game, and some people are going to have, I personally don't, is that the box is a little bit of an odd-shaped box, and some people are weird about the kind of boxes they put on their shelves, and this one really doesn't look like too many other boxes I have. I personally don't care, but it is something that I did want to mention, that it comes in an odd-side box. Now, component-wise, I'm going to tell you the components in this game are pretty dang nice, but one annoying aspect of the game is the fact that each bottle cap in this game is individually pre-wrapped with a teeny tiny little, bag. So you have to unbag all of these. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not even joking. Every single one of the bottle caps has a little Ziploc bag that you have to open up and take out. You can kind of do it as you're learning the game, though, but still, I just thought it was a humorous thing to mention. Any other cons I have with the game? No, not really. If you make one really poor choice in the auctions, it can go back and it can hurt you a lot. But, I can say that about a lot of different games. Moving on to the pros, I really enjoyed Brewin. Oh, last con I do have with the game is that it can end quicker than you would like it to. And that happens, I think that's happened, 2 or 3 times when playing this game, where someone just will get really fortunate with the beers they draw and the auctions they win. And then they'll just be like, oh, the next round's going to be the last round because I just brewed my 3rd beer. And you're like, wait, what? You brewed your 3rd beer? I'm on my 1st beer. How in the world? And that is a little bit of a bummer. So there is definitely a luck element to this game. If you can draw some really cheap beers at the beginning, then you're going to have a slight leg up on everyone else. But moving over to the pros, I did enjoy Brewin USA. I enjoyed it a good deal. And it says ages 21 on the box. Just ignore that. That's just because I'm assuming it has beer caps or something. They're chokables. Not quite sure. But it is a really enjoyable auction and bidding game. I like the area control aspect. I like when you got I really like the brew fest as well, especially when you got numerous people in a brew fest and it's like you secretly reveal your cards and someone doesn't even play cards. You're like, oh man, but somebody else does. Then you might just play one card so that way you can discard somebody else's card because maybe they just hold on to a bourbon barrel that's a 5 just specifically for brew fests. And I like the aspect of you have to really be thinking about where you place your beer. You can't just place them out willy-nilly. Are you going to be focusing on area control? Are you going to be focusing on getting the victory points at the end of the game? Are you going to be focusing on just gaining money? And I've seen people do that and actually win the game, where they will just focus on creating Brewfest, even though they know they're going to lose, so they can take half the money off the stack. And it's a really cool aspect of the game, the fact that the dealer gets to take all that auction winning and then put it onto the board on uncontrolled spaces, because you can really have a good deal of forward planning with that. I also like the different tiles that will do different things, like the 2 and 3 times modifier, even though they can be a little bit powerful and swingy in some instances. I like the different tiles and the variability in the tiles, the fact they're double-sided tiles. It's cool they have actual beers from actual brewing companies. Shout out Sun King Brewery. That was really nice as well. Nice components. I personally like the box. I think it's cool and somewhat innovative. It's just a different, maybe not innovative is the right word, but it's just a different, unique box, which I do like. And just overall, presentation-wise, it's a very nice game presentationally. It's a very rock-solid game. And if you like bidding games and you're looking for a game that plays 5 players and 4 players pretty well, this is definitely one that I can check out. That is Brewin USA from Adam's Apple Games, one that I definitely can recommend and will be staying on my shelf because I had a good deal of fun with it, and I think you might as well. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know. Brewin beer, have you ever done it? I've done it once and it turned out absolutely atrocious. My wife got me this time she was my girlfriend. She got me this Mr. Beer brewing kit, and somehow we didn't seal it up just right, and I tried to put too much prune juice into my beer because I wanted prune juice beer, and it just turned into this absolutely chunky, just not desirable beer at all. But Brewin beer, if you have any experience with it, let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.